Hey everybody, this is Perch. How do comic creators, editors, writers, artists, no matter what they do, Marvel, DC, indie comics, etc., how do they get feedback? And do they have a good mechanism for getting feedback? Well, the answer is no. But here is an area where in support of indie comics, crowdfunded comics, individual people who are able to go, I think they have a remarkably better handle on how people like their comics, what people actually think, who their audience is, than people at the big publishers. This is one of those cases where the indie books have a distinct and unique advantage. And they need to, if they can harness that more, it's probably one of the things they can do to really take down the big two, or at least, get through it. The challenge is this. Right now, if you are a writer of a comic book, let's say you are, God, who's a name I don't pick on a lot? Somebody, say you're G. Willow Wilson. Okay? You're G. Willow Wilson. This will fit because I've talked to G. Willow Wilson, so I know this is a fairly authentic story. So you're Wilson, and you are writing Miss Marvel. All right? You're cranking that thing out. And you go online and you see a confusing amount of nonsense. You see people calling it the first Muslim superhero, which and I mean, she has said before that's not true. She's aware that there has been other Muslim superheroes. But you see articles like that. You see people praising you for things that you didn't do or things that aren't actually true. You see some people complimenting the book, some normally, and some in this weird over-the-top way that make you feel like that's not actually truthful. And then you see people hating on your book, most of which feel like people who are not reading your book. A couple of people are, but many do not. And so you get this swirl of commentary. And by and large, you quickly turn to, I'm going to kind of ignore what people are saying online. Because it's just, I can't make sense of what's real, what's not. I'll use it as an ego boost every now and then to look at people who are very complimentary. But by and large, this isn't helpful feedback. Your editor is giving you close to no feedback. Your editor tends to operate in a world of basic fluffing. Oh, it's great. I can't believe what a wonderful comic this was. When I got this script, I was so excited to read it. It was wonderful. That's the kind of feedback you're getting. You're not getting real feedback. The sales feedback you get is sporadic or non-existent, meaning you are not getting timely sales information about how your books are selling. And if you are, it's coming randomly. And sometimes it's coming when you beg, ask, kick, and scream for it. What you're definitely not getting, even if you're getting some sales numbers, you're getting no trend analysis. Nobody is coming to you and saying, hey, this arc performed better than last arc, but I think, the tail end of this next arc started to dip up faster, so I think we've got a good launching pad into the next thing. Nobody is doing that kind of assessment and analysis about your writing. Nobody is doing that. Maybe you are doing it, but you're definitely not getting handed any of that. So you're not getting feedback from that direction either. Then what is your other mechanism for, knowing what's going on? Well, it's going to a comic convention. When you go to a comic convention, you are treated like a celebrity. People want to see you. You're put up on a panel. You've got a bunch of cosplayers running around in costume, and you're naturally going to spot the ones that are dressed up like your costume faster than anybody else. That's what you're going to gravitate toward. So that your mind and everything is going to steer toward, positive. Comic conventions and everything surrounds it is overwhelmingly positive in terms of feedback. Very, very, very rarely does a negative comment, a negative word ever get thrown out during a convention. I believe, by the way, that's one of the reasons why Tom King has had some tantrums and outbursts at conventions from time to time. I think it's because people do go to the convention who are longtime comic book fans who may be pissed at something Tom King is doing to their, the character they've been following for a long time. And so, and King just doesn't know what to do with it. I have met creators who, again, extremely rarely will run across a fan who will say something negative. It almost never happens. And when it does happen, the creator is completely befuddled by it. It would be a little bit like going into Arby's and somebody serves you a good meal. Or I'm not kidding actually, but no, I'm saying that a little bit tongue in cheek. It would be like if you go into a dentist and you discover it's a veterinarian instead for no apparent reason. It doesn't add up in your brain. You expected one thing, so you were trained for one thing, and you were given something completely different. And that is how negative feedback comes across at a convention. People are not expecting it. Comic creators, any of them, will tell you that it is praise, fawning praise, and probably an abundance of nerdity. It is when creators. I did this other video about what creators are like at a bar. I forgot one of the common things that creators say when they're around a bar is they will have everybody's met one super fan, and they all want to talk about the one super fan they met over drinks. The one super fan's a guy who he knows every single issue the person's ever written on far better than a creator does themselves, and it is a silly bozo of a time, and that they describe that fan as a very wow, so intense, so they love. I mean, just it's half praise, half this guy's a stalker. That's what goes on. But in general, I guess the point I'm making is that if a writer is off course, or if an artist has slipped and is off course, they are not getting any information about how they should change. They're not given any qualitative feedback, and they're just left to their own devices. What that does over time is it breeds people who are extremely unself-aware. And I got to stress here, it is a head spinning experience. If you are a creator that works from home, which almost all of them do, or even if you're working in the office at Marvel, it's a pretty confined life. Like you do not have a lot of outputs. The companies do not do a lot to encourage culture, socialization, or any of that kind of stuff. So generally speaking, you have a set of friends that you hang out with. You probably spend a lot of time in a coffee shop. Your bubble is extremely small. That's your daily life. Extremely introverted. Even if you do not have an introvert personality, the bubble around you, your environment, is introverted. And you emerge from your cocoon, from your bubble, to go to a comic convention where suddenly you've got 10,000 people who are hardcore super fans who paid a ton of money specifically to see you. And that is a massive head trip for creators. Many do not know what to do with that. They get just dramatic praise constantly. They get people begging to come see them. They see people wandering around in costumes of the characters they write. It is weird for the brain. So they go back home, back to their introverted little bubble, and they then they're left with the impression that everything is great. So if then they go back online and they see somebody saying, "I think this comic sucked," the natural safeguards in the brain go, well, that person's a troll. That person doesn't mean it. That person's just trying to get a reaction. And maybe they are, but it basically shields them from any negative interaction. It causes them to say it's all fake. Now, many creators do believe, even though their initial instinct is this is a troll, it's not real, I can ignore this, this person's just a hater, block, etc. They still stay awake at night for weeks obsessing over the negative comments. I can tell you, can I say firsthand? Yes, I can say firsthand that as much as people get pissy and complain about Dan Slott blocking a lot of people, Dan Slott is obsessed with the negative reactions, far more than the positive ones. And it wears on him. Dan Slott, what is it he said? So at one point, Slott was talking about somebody he was having an argument with. And the argument happened, I don't know, like 6 months ago. And it was still in his head. He absolutely could not get that stuff out of his mind. And that's him. So I think this is a toxic combination, or at least a weird combination. I go back to, this is where indie comics have a massive advantage over Marvel, because I think, or DC, because they are closer to it. They can actually, people are going to be a little less filtered in what they say, and arguably they're going to have a better mechanism. And if they're doing it themselves, then their lifeblood depends on it. With the big companies, the creator gets to be pretty insulated from anything that's happening sales wise or how the comic is doing. And in many cases, I mean, and this is why you get creators, and there's been several of them that, plug along on their book. They angrily block and ignore and, shout at people who give them negative comments, and then their book gets canceled. And then that same creator will talk about how stupid Marvel and DC are. They canceled the book. How dare they? They didn't give enough time. They didn't give it a chance, etc. And suddenly the company is really dumb. Where the answer was in front of their face the entire time, that there was negative feedback. There was probably valuable feedback about how to change and adjust and do different things with the comic, but they missed it because they had built up this complete wall to avoid feedback. And that's why some of the healthiest creators that you see, some of the ones that have been successful and also, seem to be more normal people, they have a social life. You hear often about how they do things outside of comics. They visit friends from other places. And in many cases, there are creators who actively solicit feedback. I've got a couple creators who send me their books on a regular basis, and they say, "Hey, what do you think about this? What would you have done differently?" and everything. And I'm honest back to them. When I give feedback, I'm not cruel with it, like this is dog shit, but I'm honest. I'm like, I think this and this and this might help you. And the creators who have that mechanism going, it's a huge asset for them. It's value that they're getting that many creators are shielded from, and you can tell kind of in the reaction. But that's, to me, one of the bigger problems in comics right now is there is just not a good system for feedback for anyone, and let alone the creators, the editors as well. It's remarkable how, for a creative product that does have an end consumer in mind, how poor that system currently exists. But anyway, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.